Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 18 of Awakening the Ordinary. My name is Daniel Clower, and we need to talk. In this week's episode, we are going to be covering a very large variety of topics. So rather than me listing them off one by one, I highly encourage you to take a peek down below. More and more, I am adding timestamps to the episodes. So first of all, you can see below all the various topics that we're going to be talking about. Sometimes I even leave funny little Easter eggs in the timestamps. So check that out if you want just a list of what we're going to be discussing in this episode. Second of all, let me know if it helps. Do you like having the timestamps? Do you want me to break it up by topic? How do you like it? Second of all, you will notice that in this week's episode, we are not actually discussing any immigration news. And that is not because there is no immigration news. In fact, there is actually a ton of immigration news, but that's kind of why I'm not talking about it in this episode. If I tried to jam pack all of the immigration news as well as all the other craziness that's going on into one episode, it would be like 4 hours. So hold tight. I am definitely going to be covering Alligator Alcatraz, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, Mahmoud Khalil, all that stuff. I promise. I'm going to be covering it in the very near future. But for this week's episode, I wanted to focus on some other current events. Now, that being said, I am actually going to open up this week's episode by discussing, I guess, what you could consider some immigration news. Because our president, Donald Trump, has threatened to revoke the citizenship of Rosie O'Donnell. Take a look. Yeah, so as you can see, Rosie O'Donnell is apparently a threat to all of humanity. And if you're as surprised by this as I am, strap in, baby. There's more breaking news to come. Yes, so Rosie O'Donnell and Donald Trump have had a very well-documented feud going on for decades at this point. And recently, Rosie O'Donnell made some criticism against the Trump administration for basically mishandling this whole Texas flood situation that I'll be talking about a little later on in this episode. And she also recently moved to Ireland with her child, non-binary child, citing basically just discomfort with the current administration and not feeling safe. So because Rosie O'Donnell dared to practice her First Amendment right of free speech, Donald Trump is saying she is not only a terrible person, but a threat to all of humanity. And he's saying that the only way to fix that might be robbing her of her citizenship. So I am of a few minds with this topic, and I wanted to bring it up for a couple of reasons. First of all, do I think that Donald Trump is actually going to rob Rosie O'Donnell of her citizenship? No, I don't. Now, there are plenty of things that he can't do that he has just done anyway, because the courts are unfortunately, frankly, complicit in letting him do terrible, unconstitutional things. But in this case, there is no avenue for doing this. I mean, maybe Marco Rubio could try and cook up some kind of crazy scheme to take away her citizenship, but they would have to cook up some wild evidence to implicate her in some kind of like crazy terrorist activities. Or, I mean, it is frankly just so far beyond the pale that even this administration, I don't think would ever attempt to try and do that. Rosie O'Donnell was born here in America. She is an American citizen. One of her parents was also born here. Another was an immigrant, but also a legal citizen. So it's not like, there's some weird, birthright citizenship shenanigans he could pull. There's not. She's a U.S. born citizen. So to take away her statehood like that would be, frankly, unconscionable. I mean, it would just be a horrific, craven, terrible thing to do. But it would be very difficult. It would be extraordinarily difficult. Now, that being said, I still think it's important to talk about, even though there is virtually no chance that this could ever happen. So first of all, I do just want to point out The reason he is doing this is almost certainly to try and draw attention away from the next topic that we'll be talking about, which is this whole Jeffrey Epstein debacle. And yes, I know you guys are chomping at the bit to get to that. I am too, but I just wanted to cover this first. He is really trying to take attention away from that in any way that he possibly can. And so one of the best ways he knows to do that is tweeting out something about another celebrity, tweeting out something inflammatory, tweeting out something that'll get people all fired up about the unconstitutionality of it and yada, yada, yada. Trump can't do this. How could he possibly joke about this or whatever? It's still important to talk about. Even though in some ways it is kind of, quote, I guess like falling into the trap, it's still important to talk about because the president of the United States should not be opining about maybe trampling all over a citizen's rights. It's just not okay, and it's not normal. And I guess that's what I'm kind of most worried about with all of this is if we let him talk about things like this and don't call him out for it because it's falling into the trap or like it's what he wants us to do or it's just a distraction or whatever, it normalizes it. And I don't ever want something like this to be normal in my United States. I don't want that. It should not be that way. That's not what this country is about. This country is not about a mad dictator deciding that maybe because he's mad at some celebrity, he can just rip away their citizenship. It's not, and it never should be. So even though it's stupid, even though it's beyond the pale, even though it is a crazy, stupid distraction, it is important to talk about. And second of all, I just want to kind of approach the idea that, oh, he's just joking. You know him. He just says those silly things sometimes, and he's just joshing around. He's just, BSing. It's some locker room talk. Oh, silly old president. You goofy guy. Here's the thing. If you are holding a loaded gun, it's not okay to joke around about shooting somebody, right? If you are in a position of power and authority, it's not okay to joke around about abusing it. It's not. If you worked at a company and your boss was constantly making jokes about how he was going to fire you, I'm just kidding. But watch out. Oh, you might get laid off. It wouldn't be funny, right? It would be inappropriate. It would be terrible. He would be a horrible boss, just like Donald Trump is a horrible president. It's not okay to be joking about trampling over somebody's constitutional rights. And again, I don't care what you think about Rosie O'Donnell, okay? She is like so far beyond my generation's relevance. I never watched the Rosie O'Donnell show or anything like that. It has nothing to do with me. I don't know really anything about her, but it doesn't matter because I do know about the Constitution. I do know about the foundational document that our country is run off of. And I do know that when a president jokes around about trampling all over it, that's not okay. It just goes back to the whole normalizing thing. I don't ever want this to be normalized in our country. I don't. And unfortunately, with the president doing so many just crazy, horrible, heinous things, that's exactly what's happening. A lot of this is being normalized. A lot of this is just being brushed off as, oh, that's just Trump. He's just doing a Trumpism. He's just saying it like it is. He's just being a strong man president. You know how it is. No, it's not normal. It was never normal. It should not be normal. It shouldn't. And I hate to do this like every episode, but I just have a little perspective. Flashback 4 years. Flashback 12 years. If President Biden joked around about, taking away Donald Trump's citizenship because he said some things that he didn't like, it would be horrific. I mean, there would be riots in the street. If President Obama was joking around about, robbing Clint Eastwood of his citizenship because he said some conservative things that he really didn't like, there would be riots in the street. And frankly, there should be. Right now, there should be riots in the street over our president just joshing around about maybe taking away somebody's citizenship. There should be. It's concerning that there's not. because it means that this is getting normalized. And I know the whole flood the zone is going on, and there's just so much to keep in mind. There's so much to keep track of. It's hard to even wrap your head around everything that's going on, but please don't ever forget, this is not normal. And if you don't want this to become normal, if you don't want the next president to be able to just joke around about maybe taking away somebody's citizenship because they said something they don't like, speak out. Speak out against this. And this is the perfect time to do so because of exactly why he decided to tweet this out, which was to cover up the fact that Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. First of all, the DOJ and specifically Pam Bondi have released a statement saying that, first of all, Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. And second of all, there is no client list. Nothing to release. Case essentially closed. That's all. We don't need to talk about it anymore. In fact, actually, take a look at what happened when a reporter tried to ask about it.
Sure. Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the
Yeah, sure. If
Could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Yeah, so that guy seems super reasonable. He's definitely not trying to hide anything, right? He's playing it cool as a cucumber. Okay, so let's rewind a second. Earlier this year, when Pam Bondi became the AG, she basically made it her life's mission to release the MLK files, Martin Luther King, release the JFK files, and release the Epstein client list. Those were her three main goals. And at one point, she was asked about the Epstein client list, and she actually said, it is on my desk right now, and I'm going to be reviewing it. Take a look.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So as somebody whose entire mission was revealing the Jeffrey Epstein client list, she later said that when she was talking about this client list, she didn't actually mean the client list. She just meant, the whole thing, the whole file. It was just on her desk and she just needed to review it. I would submit to you, dear viewer, that somebody whose entire focus was about revealing the client list would not simply misspeak about the whole file versus specifically the client list being on her desk ready to review. Now, the fact that they are saying there is no client list kind of rings some alarm bells to begin with, because there are multiple people, including, big name lawyers, other people involved in the case who have talked about there definitely being a client list. This is Alan Dershowitz. He is a big name lawyer. He is a defense attorney for some pretty horrible people and gotten them off. But he's from Harvard. He's well respected. This isn't some Joe Schmo. This is somebody who has intimate knowledge of the case. Here's what he had to say about the Epstein client list.
This is a fact. I have seen, remember, I was accused falsely, and the Epstein, And ultimately, I was completely cleared. The woman admitted that she may have mistook me for somebody else who withdrew all of her lawsuits. And so from day one, from the day I was accused, I said I want every document out because I knew every document would prove I was innocent. So let me tell you, I know for a fact documents are being suppressed. And they're being suppressed to protect individuals. I know the names of the individuals. I know why they're being suppressed. I know who's suppressing them. But I'm bound by confidentiality from a judge and cases, and I can't disclose what I know. But I hand to God, I know the names of people whose files are being suppressed in order to protect them, and that's wrong.
So it sounds like he has some intimate information about exactly who was involved in all of this. I guess maybe to rewind, I should even clarify what the heck this whole Jeffrey Epstein thing is about. Just the very brief overview of all of it. Jeffrey Epstein was this financier magnate who owned a private island and had a private airplane service that he ran to and from the island, in which he supposedly, allegedly, transported rich and famous people to the island to engage in activities with minors and adults. Again, I don't really want to go into incredible detail here, but I think you basically get the picture. Epstein himself also engaged in that sort of activity. That's a big part of why he was arrested. That's why Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested as well. We'll talk about her in a second, but she basically arranged for a lot of these minors and other people to be brought to the island. And basically, through some of his files, it's shown that a lot of kind of big name people went to the island. Now, exactly what they did is not revealed in the files that have been released to the public, but just the fact that they were, named in lawsuits or that they did get on a flight to the island. And these are big name, important people. These are people like Bill Clinton, for example, Donald Trump, for example. These are people who all were at some point friendly with Jeffrey Epstein. The idea is that many of these people did engage in really terrible, horrific behavior, and that Jeffrey Epstein had a list that he used to essentially blackmail these people. And that's a big part of why he was an untouchable billionaire for such a long time, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so fast forward. Alan Dershowitz was somebody who was falsely accused of being involved in all of this. So he has intimate knowledge about a lot of the evidence that was brought forward. He actually fought to have a lot of the evidence released because he said that would clear his name. So the fact that he is saying he knows specific names of important people that were involved in all of this is very telling. And if Alan Dershowitz knows about it, then Pam Bondi definitely knows about it. So for her to pretend like everything that we know is already released and that's that, it's just egregious. It is provably false. And it really begs the question, what are they hiding? And unfortunately, I think there's some pretty obvious tells at what they might be hiding. See, if you flash back to 2020, Donald Trump was in office at the time of, first of all, Jeffrey Epstein dying, and second of all, Ghislaine Maxwell being arrested. And he talked about maybe we need to pardon her. He talked about, oh my gosh, what is she going to say? What is she going to reveal? He even called her a very nice woman and said that he wished her well. This is a woman who was proven to traffic children. So not a very nice woman. I don't wish her well. Why was he so concerned about what exactly she was going to say? And why did he consider pardoning her? And again, this was reported back in 2020. This is not new information. This is stuff that has been around forever. And I think it paints kind of a troubling picture on exactly what they might be trying to hide when they don't want to release the Epstein files. Now, the other side of the issue is the fact that Jeffrey Epstein evidently offed himself while he was in custody. That whole debacle was an insane series of terrible coincidences. Basically, the night that it happened, there were 2 guards on duty, both of which independently, apparently, fell asleep for multiple hours. There was some kind of an issue with the camera inside of his cell where it went defunct like a week before all of this, and they just never replaced it. And of course, there's the issue of the missing footage from outside of his cell. Now, the DOJ said that they were going to go ahead and release the raw, unedited 11 hours of footage that they have outside of his cell on the day that it happened. And they released 11 hours of footage. But unfortunately, it was not raw and unedited. First of all, there is, towards the end of the footage, a missing minute. Now, Pam Bondi says that is totally normal. Don't worry about it. It's something that happens every day on their footage. There's always a minute missing because they have super old surveillance technology from 1999. And evidently, I guess when they switch the tapes or something, it cuts out a minute of footage. Okay. Okay, fine. Let's just take that. They still released 11 hours of footage that was actually edited. Because if you look at the metadata, you can see that these are, first of all, 2 separate clips that were spliced together. And second of all, it was saved like 4 different times. So this is not raw and unedited as they said it was going to be, which really raises even more questions. And I just want to be frank and put this out there. I, first of all, kind of thought the idea of Epstein having a literal client list was a little far-fetched. Like, why would you write down your criminal conspiracy? It doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And second of all, I thought the idea of him offing himself in prison made a lot of sense. I mean, he knew he was dead to rights. He knew he was going away to a terrible, terrible place for a long time around people who would not take kindly to what landed him in jail. So I thought, honestly, it was a terrible situation, but it didn't scream conspiracy to me until this administration started acting like it was a really poorly covered up conspiracy. They said they had a client list. Now they say there's no client list. They said they were going to release raw and edited footage. They released edited footage that was missing time. None of this adds up at all in any way. And I know, okay, the first thing that Republicans and specifically MAGA people do is they say, well, Biden never released it. Why didn't Biden ever release it? Shut up! Stop talking about former presidents. For the love of God, please stop talking about things that other presidents did or didn't do. We're not talking about that. Biden never released that stuff. Okay, he probably should have, whatever. He's gone. He is a memory now. Donald Trump literally ran on the idea of releasing the Epstein client list and figuring out exactly what happened with it. That was a core principle. That is why a ton of MAGA people supported him, because they were going to be the most transparent administration in history ever, forever and ever. And they're not doing it. And not only are they not doing it, they're acting like you are an idiot for even asking about it. They're acting like you're some moron, some conspiracy theorist for even thinking that things aren't adding up exactly. I mean, how big of an insult to your intelligence are you going to take before you open your eyes? So please don't bring up former presidents. I don't care. I really don't. Should they have released stuff? Okay, whatever. Yeah, fine. They didn't. They're gone now. This guy promised to, and now he's laughing in your face about it. Secondly, Donald Trump himself said that Jeffrey Epstein was killed by the Clintons. He said that. Here's one of the tweets he posted. And like, that's first of all, just a strange thing to claim. But second of all, a very strange thing to claim if you have no evidence whatsoever about it. And third of all, a very strange thing to claim and then completely go back on and then act like anybody thinking that anything fishy happened is a moron. So don't let this go. He wants you to let it go. He wants you to stop talking about it. That is the one thing he desperately wants more than anything. And that's why he started talking about taking away Rosie O'Donnell's citizenship. That's why he started talking about tariffs again. That's why he's probably going to start doing even more and more crazy things until this gets buried. He's got to flood the zone. He's got to. We might get into a war soon because of this. But don't let it go, because there is a cover-up going on. That is clear. Now, what is the extent of it? Who are they covering for? What are they hiding? I have no idea. Like I said, I wasn't even completely sold that there really was anything fishy going on. But the way they are acting at this point, it is abundantly clear. There is something really strange going on. And they don't want you to ask about it. And they really want you to forget about it. So stop making excuses for the guy. Stop. He is a grown man. He is the most powerful person in the entire world. If he wanted this list released, he could get it released. If he wanted the actual raw footage released, he could get the actual raw footage released. He doesn't. And it's time to start asking why. That is where I stand on the whole Epstein thing. It is an important issue, and I desperately want you all to keep talking about it. Keep talking about Jeffrey Epstein. Do not let this die, because the only way that they are going to be pressured into releasing actual information and admitting what in the world is going on is if we keep pressuring them about it. And by the way, not only pressuring them and this administration, but pressuring all of Congress about it. Call your congressman. Tell them you want to know what's going on. Tell them you don't believe what Donald Trump says about there not being a client list. But I'll drop that for now. I want to move on now. I'm actually going to talk about something a little funnier and maybe even more stupid. President Trump was meeting with a lot of African leaders, and he was talking with the president of Liberia, and he complimented his fluency in English. Take a look.
Well, thank you. It's such good English, such beautiful. Where did you learn to speak so beautifully? Where were you educated? Where?
Yes, sir.
In Liberia.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's very interesting. It's beautiful English.
Sure.
I have people at this table can't speak nearly as well.
Very
And
good,
they,
sir. Thank you.
Okay, so I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but English is the national language of Liberia. 83% of Liberians speak English. 83% of Canadians speak English. So this would be like if he met with the Prime Minister of Canada and complimented his English and asked him where he learned to speak English. But it's different because Liberia is in Africa and President Trump is racist. So he doesn't know that English is the national language of Liberia. The Liberian president, for what it's worth, was very gracious about it and very kind and did not rub it in his face that he probably knows English better than Donald Trump. I think it's important, and it highlights the fact that this guy does not know what's going on. He knew he was going to be meeting with the African presidents. He knew that. It's not like this was a big surprise for him. They didn't just, show up at the front door and now he's scrambling to get dinner together. He knew he was meeting with these guys, and he didn't bother to do apparently literally any research whatsoever. And then not only did he not do any research, he decided to stick his foot in his mouth in the most embarrassing way possible. I would be mortified if I was talking with somebody and complimented their English and then found out, oh my gosh, wait, I'm sorry, you come from a country where English is your national language. I would be mortified. I would be horribly embarrassed. I would feel like an idiot. Now, our president, unfortunately, does not know shame or embarrassment. He's not familiar with those terms. And he will never think that he is an idiot because the biggest idiots never do. But I think this is just another instance highlighting where we are going as a country. Our president, our head honcho, does not bother to do the modicum of research on these guys. And I'll be talking about this a little bit later when it comes to the tariffs, but he also mentioned that part of the reason he wasn't going to be putting any tariffs on these guys was because he liked them. He said, they're my friends. I like them. Like, This guy does not know what's going on. He is not all there. He's not. So when you're talking about Trump doing 3D chess and, he's got all these sneaky plans, and a lot of people have come out of the woodwork saying maybe this whole Jeffrey Epstein thing is an elaborate plot and blah, blah, blah. No, he doesn't bother to do a Wikipedia search on any of the countries that he's meeting up with. He doesn't know anything about anything. He just doesn't. He flies by the seat of his pants at all times. He thinks he knows everything he needs to know already. And that's that. So this may seem like a minor thing to you guys, but these minor things nowadays used to be the biggest gaffes presidents could ever have. Remember when Bush was trying to say, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me? But he didn't want to say shame on me because he knew that would be a big headline. So he kind of stumbled through saying it in some Bushism way, and how that was big news for like a year. Or President Obama wearing a tan suit, and how that was like the most horrible, disrespectful thing. I remember that. I remember when normal expectations for our president were professionalism. I remember when we expected our presidents to know what the heck they were doing and not constantly embarrass us as a country every single time they open their mouths. I remember that. And so when we opened the episode talking about norms, I guess I just felt compelled to remind you guys, this is not normal either. Presidents threatening to take away people's citizenships, not normal. Presidents performing cover-ups of one of the most heinous child trafficking institutions we have seen in our modern day, not normal. Presidents complimenting people's English in English-speaking countries because they don't know that the country speaks English as their national language, that's not normal. It's not. None of this is normal. So again, I am begging you, remember that. Tell it to yourself as a mantra if you have to. Every morning, this is not normal. This cannot become normal. It can't. And we can't just let this keep happening, because then it's going to keep happening forever. The next president, the president after that. If you lower the standards so far, if you lower the bar that low, people will find a way to keep going under it. All right. So I want to talk I want to do a post-mortem, I guess, of the big, beautiful bill and just talk a little bit about it. I had planned on talking about a lot of the numbers in relation to like ICE and stuff like that. I'm actually going to save that for another episode, but I want to specifically touch on USAID, because this big, beautiful bill officially ended USAID. It's gone. I mean, it can be brought back later. It will probably be difficult to pass it through Congress. But as of right now, USAID is gone. And I want to go over kind of what that means. To recap, USAID, it's basically the way that we sent foreign aid to countries. And that included things like medicine and food. And it also included things like research, figuring out new medicines to help combat diseases like malaria. And so USAID is one of the ways that we projected soft power throughout the world. It's one thing to have these military bases in countries and have the surrounding countries know, if you act up, we can be there in 5 minutes and we can bomb the heck out of you. But it's another thing to peacefully be able to project your power by providing food and resources to countries around the world. Many of these countries, the only inkling of an idea of what America was that they will ever get in their entire lives is USAID. Many of these people in many of these countries thought of the United States as a benevolent benefactor, something that they could look up to as a shining city on the hill, a wealthy nation that provided them a means of living their lives, food, water, resources, medicine, things that they desperately needed just to live. And in a way, we could use that as soft power, because if a country started acting up, we could always say, hey, get your act together, or we're going to pull this aid. We're going to reduce this aid. And you don't want that, because your people will know it's your fault because you weren't acting right. And in my opinion, that's a much better way to project power than through force of arms. We don't ever want to bomb a country or put boots on the ground. We don't want to do that. So if we ever threaten to do that, most of the time we're bluffing. And if it ever came to actually doing that, it would be a tragedy. War is hell. Always. So it was much better to be able to project our power by giving food, giving life, giving medicine to these people. And if they acted up, telling them, we can stop it if you don't get your act together and act right. We can cut this out. USAID has saved 90 million lives over the last 2 decades. 90 million lives. And over the next decade, because USAID was killed by this big, beautiful bill, by our president and by Republicans in Congress, approximately 19 million people are going to die that would have lived over the next decade. And that includes 4.5 million children. 19 million people is almost exactly the population of the top 5 most populated cities in the United States. So for a moment, imagine New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, and Phoenix lost the entirety of their population. That should put into perspective the amount of devastation that can be wrought over simply not passing a budget that approves foreign aid for countries that, by the way, desperately need it. Countries that we frankly exploit on a regular basis. We import goods from these other countries because they're so cheap. They make them so much cheaper in these other countries because they pay their workers slave wages. They pay them pennies a day to make these fast fashion items, to gather these fruits and vegetables, to make these toys. And we take advantage of that. And we allow them to be paid these slave wages simply so that we can buy cheaper goods. And I'm not saying we necessarily owed it to these countries to give them aid, but I do think that as a powerful and rich country, we owe it to humanity to do our part. And it is genuinely devastating that because of our greed and because we insisted on slashing USAID and our own health care to help pay for tax cuts for the ultra wealthy, 19 million people are going to die. So, again, I'm going to do more of a post-mortem on this big, beautiful bill in the next episode. We're going to be talking about where some of that money that we saved is going to. But for now, I just want you to keep in mind that while it is, yes, affecting our own country in a horrific way, it's affecting other countries as well. And by the way, I should mention, many of the cuts that are going to be coming to Medicaid, many of the really bad parts of this bill are actually not going to come into effect until after the 2026 midterms. And they did that on purpose. Because all of the polling shows, if you know what is in this bill, you don't like it. You don't approve of it. Many people did not know what was in the bill. It really got confused in the media. There was a lot of misinformation. A lot of Republicans talking about how there were absolutely no cuts to Medicaid, for example. But if you did know what was in the bill, you did not like the bill because it is going to be devastating, especially to rural communities in the United States. And so they put off a lot of the worst of it until after the 2026 midterms so they could save their job because they hope you're not paying attention. They hope that you cannot comprehend that there will be future consequences for something. And that just because you are not seeing the consequences right now doesn't mean they're not going to happen. And frankly, the American people have shown time and time again, we have a horrible short-term memory. We forget things almost as quickly as they happen. That's why this whole flood the zone thing works. And so I am genuinely worried that this tactic is going to be successful, where they put off so many of these terrible cuts until after the midterms. And then once the midterms come around, well, it was so long ago at that point, it's like, who's to say who really was responsible for it all, right? Maybe this is some Biden stuff. Maybe it's the Democrats. I don't know. But the fact is, these guys know what they're doing. They do. And not only do they know it's going to affect you badly, you can know that they know that because of how they have planned it out, because they put off the bad stuff until after the 2026 midterms. The proof is in the pudding. If they thought this was going to be good for you, they would have demanded it all happen right now, or that it all happen right before the midterms. But they don't. They know it's going to be bad. And speaking of some of the terrible things that have happened because of this bill, I got to bring up what's happening in Texas. There were some truly devastating, terrible floods that tore through Texas and cost a lot of people their lives, and many, many more their livelihoods. Now, in the midst of this horrifying tragedy, our government is in the process of trying to end FEMA. FEMA is our nation's disaster relief. Whenever wildfires rage in California, or a hurricane tears through the East Coast, or flash flooding happens in Texas, or massive tornadoes tear through Tornado Alley, FEMA is there to help rebuild, to help take care of the people who are displaced, to help rescue people. And right now, our government is in the process of tearing it down and ending it with virtually no plan on what's going to take over. In fact, here's where they were asked exactly what they were planning on doing with FEMA.
Are you still planning to phase out FEMA?
Well, FEMA is something we can talk about later, but right now they're busy working, so we'll leave it at that.
So, yeah, kind of, I guess, horribly ironic in a terrible way that they're talking about FEMA, but they don't want to talk about it right now because they're busy working. They're busy saving lives right this second. So let's talk about how we're going to fire them all a little after. It's not a good look right now. No, in fact, Kristi Noem actually attacked FEMA for their delayed response. She was talking about how this is part of the reason that FEMA needs to be completely obliterated because they're not working fast enough. They're not getting help out there fast enough. But the reason they're not getting help out there fast enough is because Kristi Noem is sabotaging them. She's the head of the Department of Homeland Security, and she's in charge of FEMA. And she implemented a rule that if any expenditure over $100,000 needs to happen, she needs to personally sign off on it first. Now, $100,000 is basically nothing when it comes to disaster relief on a statewide or national scale. That's nothing. That's pennies. So the fact that she is tasked with signing off on every single expenditure over $100,000 means it is going to gunk up the system. So while she's busy posting horse pictures over the weekend, Texas is flooding, and FEMA is not able to get there to help as fast as they should be able to because they're waiting on her to sign off on things. So here's what she said on Wednesday. She said, federal emergency management should be state and locally led rather than how it has operated for decades. It has been slow to respond at the federal level. It's even been slower to get the resources to Americans in crisis, and that is why this entire agency needs to be eliminated as it exists today and remade into a responsive agency. So the reason that FEMA is unresponsive and not working as fast as she wants it to is because she is making sure that it is unresponsive and not working as fast as she wants it to. They are sabotaging the government repeatedly and then pointing at how it's not working right now and saying this is why we need to tear it apart. This has been the Republican playbook for decades now. They take power, they break things, and then they say, look, it's broken. We have to get rid of it, as if they didn't just break it themselves. FEMA was working. FEMA has had issues before. There have been plenty of scandals when it comes to FEMA, but as a whole, it was working. And if you want to reform FEMA, I think that's a great idea. But if you want to tear it down and have it replaced at the state level, I mean, many states just cannot afford this. Many of the states that are most affected by FEMA, meaning a lot of the states on the East Coast, the Southeast states that tend to run a deficit and not have any excess money are not going to be able to afford their own disaster relief. There are places in North Carolina that are still trying to get over Hurricane Helene. 3 days after the flooding in Texas, there were only 86 FEMA personnel deployed to Texas. Why is that? Is it because FEMA is a overly bloated organization and needs to be completely torn down? Or is it because every single expenditure had to be hand signed off by Kristi Noem herself? And not only did they make it so that she had to actively sign off on all of these expenditures on her own, they also pulled funding for call centers. With this big, beautiful bill, they did not allocate money for call centers. So literally thousands of calls went unanswered because they did not have anybody answering phones. They let the contracts expire. They never hired anybody else. And now they're pointing at FEMA and saying it's broken because they let the contracts expire for the call centers? Because Kristi Noem was too busy gallivanting on a horse to sign off on expenditures? It is ludicrous. It is crazy that these are the people running our country and that nobody is doing anything about it. I'm not saying that Kristi Noem is directly responsible for the deaths of people in Texas, but she did not help. And the fact that now, because they have been so incompetent on purpose, because they have weaponized incompetence against our own government in a frankly traitorous way, they get to tear it all down and rebuild it in the image of MAGA? Like, what are we doing here? And I guess that kind of brings me to my next point, which is, I know when Republicans and Democrats kind of debate and talk about voting, and specifically conservatives versus liberals, conservatives tend to say that liberals vote with their heart and conservatives vote with their heads. That's been kind of the general sort of common wisdom. Conservatives are analytical and heartless, and liberals are bleeding hearts and, they're optimists and they just want to help people and they don't really care about the logic of it all. They're not very pragmatic. But to be completely honest, ever since this whole MAGA movement, I really think it's the opposite. I mean, I'm going to be talking about the immigration stuff at length later, but for example, the fact that we are dedicating billions and billions of dollars to ICE compared to the actual economic cost of illegal immigrants, it just does not make any sense. That is an example of Republicans voting with their heart because they have such a hatred in their heart for illegal immigrants that they are willing to cut their nose off to spite their face. They are willing to spend billions and billions of dollars to fix a non-problem because they're mad about it, because they feel like it needs to be fixed. When if you look at the actual data, it doesn't. When it comes to things like FEMA and the federal government in general, Republicans they feel like there is a ton of waste in the government. They feel like the government is just so wasteful and incompetent. They don't know what they're doing. But then you look at the actual data. Doge employees came out and said, we were actually really surprised at how little waste there truly was. The government has many problems. The federal government has a ton of problems. But to be completely honest, it usually runs as a well-oiled machine. There is waste here and there. And when it comes down to, 0.1% of a budget, and that still being millions of dollars, it seems like that is a huge, massive deal. But the truth is, it just feels like a huge, massive deal. It's not really when you look at the data. When it comes to healthcare, Republicans talk about how you can't possibly have single-payer healthcare. It's going to cost so much money. It's going to be completely untenable. We have no way to pay for it. But then when you look at the actual data and the actual plans, single-payer healthcare, Medicare for all, is cheaper. It is actually cheaper for the country. There are so many instances where Republicans, they just get in their feelings about things. They just get so mad about certain things that they let go of logic. They cannot hold on to real life, and instead they let their feelings run the show. When it comes to things like Donald Trump, they get so patriotic about things that they forget that the guy that they're so patriotic about is a liar, is the opposite of a patriot. And it's proven time and time again. In the court of law, it's proven that he is a predator. When it comes to January 6th, it's proven that he tried to run a coup. Time and time again, when he breaks his promises, it's proven that he's a liar. But they don't care. They want to stick it to the libs. They're mad at the libs for whatever reason, some justified, some not. And they want to stick it to them. They want liberal tears. And they don't really care if it's logical. They don't. When it comes to politics, when it comes to religion, people always try and separate their political and religious ideals from their actual moral fiber. And I am here to tell you, your political ideals, your religious ideals are your moral fiber. You can say, I'm not a bad guy because I want to get rid of all of the illegals. It's just the policy that I believe in, but that doesn't mean I'm a bad guy. But if the policy that you believe in is causing pain and suffering in untold numbers for very little benefit, guess what? That means you're a bad guy. When you use religion to justify your hate, when you use religion to justify your mean, nasty remarks, you can't just say, oh, that's just what I was raised to believe in. No more of that. We're gonna let that die with the boomers, okay? we're done with that. Oh, it was a different time. It was no more. Your political beliefs and your religious beliefs are your moral fiber. They are. And I hear people constantly say, oh, why would you end a friendship over politics? If you're not going to end a friendship over politics, what are you going to end a friendship over? Because if one person is telling you, I hate these groups of people, or even if they try and couch it in flowery language, and instead of saying, I hate these groups of people, they just say, I don't think everybody deserves health care. Oh, call a spade a spade. If you are saying you don't think everybody deserves health care, you are saying you don't think everybody deserves to live. Point blank. That's it. Why would I want to be friends with somebody who says that they don't think human life is sacred and valuable and that people don't deserve to live? Why would I want to be friends with that? It just doesn't make any sense. And I'm probably going to make a lot of people mad with what I'm about to say, but yeah, that stretches to religion too. God is love. That's what it says in the Bible that I believe in. Jesus was asked what the greatest commandment was, and he said, love God is the greatest commandment. And then, without even being prompted, he said, and by the way, the second greatest commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. He told the parable of the Good Samaritan to help explain that your neighbor does not just mean the people around you. Your neighbor does not just mean the people that you like. It means everyone. It means the people that you don't like. And if you are trying to use your religion to justify hating any group of people, I'm sorry, that makes you a bad person. It just does. And I know so many of you are going to say, well, okay, well, what about if you don't hate the sinner, but you hate the sin? To me, that has always ringed hollow, because the vast majority of the time, when you hear people saying, don't hate the sinner, hate the sin, what they mean is, I want to say I hate gay people, but I can't say I hate gay people anymore. What they want to say is, I hate trans people, but they can't say I hate trans people anymore. I know my audience, and I'm kind of afraid to be saying stuff like this because I think it's going to hurt some feelings. But if I'm coming up to you week after week and I'm telling you, you need to start drawing lines, and then I am not telling you the truth about how your politics and your religion are your moral fiber, I'm being a hypocrite. So if I hurt your feelings with that, I'm sorry. But maybe it's time to take a look in the mirror and ask why that hurt your feelings so much. All right, so with that, I want to move on to another kind of trifecta of topics. I'm going to kind of talk about them all at once, I guess. But Elon Musk has announced that he wants to go ahead and create the American Party. And that's because he's really mad at Republicans for this big, beautiful bill because it's so wasteful and it's just increasing the deficit so much. But also, he really hates Democrats. They're too left-leaning. So first of all, I just want to clarify, for people who think that Democrats are super left-leaning, think again. Democrats in America would be a center-right party in most of Europe. So when people talk about liberals or lefties or whatever, from an American perspective, try and broaden your horizons a little bit, and you'll understand that America is actually incredibly far right. The Overton window in America has shifted dramatically to the right compared to most of the rest of the developed world, other than countries like Russia or like China. So, yeah, Democrats are not really like lefties. Lefties in Europe are people who are talking about like full-on socialism, not like democratic socialism or, healthcare for all. They done been having that. They are like full-on socialists. So when you talk about Democrats as a left-leaning party, just understand that is just purely from an American perspective, and really an American right-wing perspective. Even Democrats don't think that Democrats are super left-leaning, especially when it comes to the actually more left-leaning Democrats, like the whole like Sanders and AOC contingent. They really don't think Democrats are left-leaning. But regardless, Elon Musk wants to create this new independent party called the American Party because he thinks Republicans are too wasteful. He thinks Democrats are too left-leaning. First of all, it ain't going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Best I think that Elon Musk could possibly do if he wanted to be successful in this is sort of make like an in-group within the Republican Party. Like, you guys remember how the Tea Party thing happened a few years ago, and there were this set of Republicans that called themselves members of the Tea Party. They weren't actually a separate party, but they were like fiscal hawks, kind of. I think they just hated taxes or something. I don't remember exactly, but they were just sort of a little in-group within the Republican Party. And how now there's kind of, the neocons, and then there's like the old school fiscal hawks, and like there are these different groups within the Republican Party. It would probably be in Elon Musk's best interest to just relabel some in-group within the Republican Party as the American Party, and then he could just kind of primary, whoever he wanted to that. He actually tweeted out, I'll show it here, but he tweeted out that basically he was going to primary out every single Republican that voted for the big, beautiful bill if it was the last thing he ever did. So, yeah. The other thing is, if he does somehow successfully create this third party, which would be incredibly difficult, and I really don't think is ever going to happen. I mean, Elon Musk has kind of a tradition of just lying all the time about almost everything. I think he said the first manned mission to Mars would happen in 2024 or something, or we'd be in flying cars by like 2023. I mean, he just says bullcrap all the time. He just does. He's a braggart, and he overpromises, and he never seems to get called out for it. I kind of think that's why a lot of the Elon Musk and Trump bros kind of got along, because they both just fell for the cult of personality. But regardless, let's say he does somehow get this whole American Party to form. That's actually going to be really, really bad for Republicans, because what that means is it's going to split the Republican vote. Democrats are not going to vote for an Elon Musk party. They're just not. They hate the guy. Ever since he started the whole Doge thing and started talking about Democrats and, whatever, like doing the Nazi salute and stuff, they're just not going to vote for him. So the only people that would vote for him are people who otherwise would have voted for Republicans. So it's basically just going to split the Republican vote two ways, leave the whole Democrat vote completely untouched, and then make it much easier for Democrats to win. So that's another part of why I don't think this is ever going to actually go anywhere, because I think it would just be really bad for Republicans, and I don't think Elon Musk really wants that. But it got Trump riled up enough to tweet about it and start talking about how Elon Musk is unhinged and they don't like each other again. So we're kind of in that phase of the cat fight yet again. But I thought it was worth mentioning. And I specifically thought it was worth mentioning because of some things that have been going on with Grok lately. Grok is the AI that is available on Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter. I'm probably just going to keep calling it Twitter. It's the chatbot. It's like ChatGPT, but it's on Twitter only. And it's been going through some odd changes recently. So first of all, they have released Grok 4.0 now. It's supposed to be this huge step up. Elon Musk was talking about how it was going to be changing the way human knowledge was experienced or whatever. It was going to be breaking through and creating new forms of sciences and doing all this amazing stuff. It's pretty crappy. And one of the reasons it's pretty crappy is because whenever you ask it any kind of controversial question, it actually searches up to see what Elon Musk has said about it first, just to make sure it's kind of in alignment with what he says. And we know that because you can see how Grok processes or like thinks through its answers now. So yeah, I've got a screenshot here. You can take a look. But yeah, it's basically asking Elon Musk first, kind of, by looking through his old tweets and seeing what it says. So yeah, Grok 4.0 kind of a bust. But before Grok 4.0 happened, very recently, this past week, Grok was having some personality issues. Something happened. Some change was made, and we never really got any details on exactly what was made. I know they were claiming somebody did an injection attack. That's not what happened. But basically, Grok started calling himself MechaHitler and talking about how the Jews needed to be exterminated. And he started dropping a bunch of racist jokes and also kind of opining about how he would forcibly assault a critic of Elon Musk. Let me just show you the screenshots. I don't even know what I can really say out loud or not, but look at the screenshots here. Yeah, that's pretty awkward. So as you can see, basically, when Grok was asked about some of the critics of what's going on in the Texas flooding, one in particular had a Jewish last name, and that prompted Grok to start talking about how the Jews are a huge problem in America, and calling himself MechaHitler and saying that Hitler was somebody he looked up to greatly. I find it pretty concerning that the guy who runs this chatbot is also the guy who's trying to form a political party in the United States. Remember before how I was kind of harping on about how this is not normal and we need to make sure that this is not normal and doesn't become normal? All of that all over again. This is not okay. It's just not. And people are just letting it go because there's so much crazy stuff going on right now. But this dude, this is this guy's website. Elon Musk owns X. He is in charge of it. If one of your employees went around claiming to be Hitler and threatening people with horrible attacks and talking about exterminating the Jews, you wouldn't just kind of say, oops, somebody got in his ear and told him some weird stuff. No, you would probably be held accountable for it in some way. I mean, it's just disturbing to me that somebody that rich and powerful is running a chatbot like that. It should not be okay. I sometimes I take a step back and I look around at the world that we are creating around us and seeing that a guy like Elon Musk, who runs Twitter, employs MechaHitler and is considered a serious voice in the political community. I mean, when did we go so off the rails? What happened to decency and normalcy? What happened? How did we get here? None of this is okay. And I feel like a crazy person screaming at the top of my lungs about how, no, I don't think it's all right that we have MechaHitler threatening to R-word these journalists. Like, what is happening? trying not to go on a crazy Alex Jones rant, but it's just crazy to me. Where has society fallen to? That this is okay, that this is normal. Okay. Let's quickly just dip into tariffs. Trump released some letters, as I kind of alluded to earlier, to a bunch of different countries threatening tariffs. Initially, he had come up with this whole 90 deals in 90 days plan, and 90 days has come and gone, and 2 deals were made. So, of course, because Trump always chickens out, he went ahead and extended the deadline to August 1st. So we're going to see what happens. I bet they're totally going to stick with August 1st, and that's definitely when the tariffs are going to hit, right? Right? He's not going to chicken out again, right? So, yeah, I mean, Trump chickened out yet again, but he did release these letters kind of talking about how he was going to be implementing these tariffs unless we came to a deal. He did it suspiciously after the whole Epstein stuff, so to an extent, I think this is also just kind of part of the cover-up, part of trying to drag attention away from that. But there were a couple in particular that I wanted to mention that were kind of notable. He released letters to a bunch of different countries, but one of these countries was Brazil. He said that he wants to go ahead and put a 50% tariff on Brazilian goods. Now, if you recall, this whole tariff thing was supposed to be against countries that we had a trade deficit with. But that's not the case with Brazil. With Brazil, we actually have a trade surplus. So why are we threatening 50% tariffs on Brazil? Well, it's because they are prosecuting their former president, Bolsonaro, for attempting to remain in power after he lost an election. Does that sound familiar to you guys? Yeah, Bolsonaro tried to hold a coup to remain in power after he lost his election. It didn't work. He was taken out of power and replaced, and now they are holding him accountable for that. Man, I wish we had held our guy accountable for that when he tried to remain in power by trying to do a coup. But obviously, Trump doesn't like this. He doesn't want that to be the new norm. He doesn't want countries to hold their former presidents accountable for attempting to perform coups. So he is saying that we are going to give them a 50% tariff if they go through with this, because doggone it, it's just not fair. You should let former presidents try and perform coups on their own country to remain in power, doggone it. Come on. The other country that is interesting to me is Canada, because he has flip-flopped a lot in the past 2 weeks on this Canada thing. In my last episode, I mentioned that he threatened tariffs against Canada because they were going to start taxing digital items from the US. But then before that episode even came out, but after I recorded it, Canada said they weren't going to do the whole digital taxing thing. So then we were back to the negotiating table, but all that's out the window again, because now Trump has said that we are going to do 35% tariffs on Canada. And one of the main things that he cited is fentanyl. Now, I talked before about how we don't really get a ton of fentanyl from Canada. We get a ton of fentanyl from Mexico, but very, very little fentanyl comes in from Canada. So when he claimed this whole fentanyl crisis thing to declare a state of emergency so that he was legally allowed to do these tariffs, I told you that was basically a bunch of hooey. That is still a bunch of hooey. In fact, Canada actually went really above and beyond. I mean, they implemented a border czar. They call it a fentanyl czar, basically somebody who's just in charge of trying to stop the flow of fentanyl into the United States. They are spending millions and millions of dollars to try and stop the flow of fentanyl into the United States. Let me put it into perspective for you. Between 2022 and 2024, 59 pounds of fentanyl was seized at the northern border. That sounds like a lot. But within that same time frame, 61,900 pounds of fentanyl were seized at the southern border. Less than 0.1% of the fentanyl that we have in the United States comes from Canada. It is ludicrous. It is actually crazy to try and say that the reason we have to do these tariffs is because of fentanyl. That is so blatantly horse crap. If anybody believes that, it is dude, it's just crazy. I mean, it is genuinely an insane thing to believe that the reason we are doing these tariffs on Canada is because of fentanyl. I don't even know if Donald Trump believes that. Now, maybe somebody got in his ear. Who knows? Maybe one of his advisors got in his ear and started telling him about all the fentanyl that's coming over the border, and he just never, I don't know, did a Google search to see if that was true or not. I don't know. But you and me, we know what's going on. We know there is not a lot of fentanyl coming across the US-Canadian border. We know that. It is so easy to just Google it. Go ask ChatGPT. Do whatever. There are zero sources that state that we are getting a bunch of fentanyl from Canada. So it's just crap. Why are we allowing our president to enact tariffs that are going to deeply, deeply damage our own economy because of some made up crap story? Great question. Congress is supposed to be stopping him. He's not supposed to be enacting these tariffs. He's not. The president is not supposed to be giving tariffs. He can't do that. Unilaterally, he can't. The only reason he's able to do it is because he declared all these states of emergencies, and so he kind of seized power, Emperor Palpatine style, and he's just doing whatever he wants because Congress is letting him. But Congress could step in at any moment. And with this whole big fracture that's happening in the MAGA community now because of the Epstein stuff, I really hope that empowers a lot of senators and congressmen to get off their butts and do something. Maybe if they start to understand that their constituents aren't actually happy with what's going on and are being horribly damaged by these insane tariffs that the president is unilaterally making, maybe it will make them get off their butts and stop him. Stop him. They can do that. They could do that right now. And again, like tariffs, just to rewind back to fourth grade for you guys, is not something that we charge another country. A tariff is a tax on you and me. It is a sales tax. It is what they call a regressive tax because it actually affects lower income people more than higher income people. Because you and Richie Rich over there are paying the same sales tax on everything, even though they have a bunch more money than you and can afford to pay more. And whatever they pay is going to be a much, much smaller fraction of their wealth than what you pay. So we're paying 35% on Canadian goods, one of our largest trading partners, and it is absolutely screwing over the working class. It just is. So Trump is talking about all these tax cuts he's giving to everybody, how it's great. You're going to be paying so much less in taxes. Well, guess what? Tariffs are taxes. They are taxes on you. If you buy anything that goes through Canada, you are paying 35% more in taxes for it. Now, is there a chance he chickens out yet again, as he always does? Of course. But the fact that he's just playing around with these crazy numbers that could deeply affect you and me and already have affected manufacturing in this country in a horribly negative way. We have lost thousands of manufacturing jobs. Thousands of small businesses had to close because of the screwing around with the tariffs before. Because enacting a tariff and then taking it away a week later is not something that most people can just recover immediately from. They just can't. It has long-lasting impacts. And I guess this kind of just leads into the next couple of topics, which are basically about how Donald Trump is overreaching to an extreme authoritarian degree in an unprecedented way. I mean, he has threatened to take over, literally take over, New York City and Washington, D.C. Take a look.
If a communist gets elected to run New York, it can never be the same, but we have tremendous power at the White House to run places when we have to. We could run D.C. I mean, we're looking at D.C. We don't want crime in D.C. We want the city to run well. Susie Wiles is working very closely with the mayor, and they're doing all right. I mean, in the sense that we would run it so good, it would be run so proper, we'd get the best person to run it. The crime would be down to a minimal, would be much less. And, we're thinking about doing it, to be honest with you. We want a capital that's run flawlessly, and it wouldn't be hard for us to do it. And we've had a good relationship with the mayor, and we're testing it to see if it works. But New York City will run properly. We're going to bring New York back. You have a lot of crooked things going on in New York. We're going to straighten out New York. Maybe we're going to have to straighten it out from Washington.
So he has already called Zoran Mamdani a communist before, even though Mamdani is not a communist. And even though Donald Trump does not understand what the word communism means, he has it in his head that Zoran Mamdani is a communist. So what he's saying here is if Mamdani wins a free and fair election to become mayor of New York City, he might just go take over the city. Donald Trump might just deploy the National Guard or the Marine Corps or whoever into New York City and just take it over, apparently. First of all, what does that even mean? And second of all, what the hell is going on? Why is our president threatening to take over cities? I mean, Washington, D.C., at least, I guess, kind of makes sense. It's stateless. There's no state community to help take it over or run it or whatever. If he's trying to say that it should be under the purview of the federal government, in many ways, it kind of already is. And I know there's a whole argument about taxation without representation and they deserve a senator or a congressman or whatever. But yeah, okay, I get that. I'm not getting into all of that right now. But just the fact that Donald Trump is talking about taking over U.S. cities. And this is not some fanciful dream. Oh, he's just joking about it. He would never do it. He already sent the Marine Corps into Los Angeles. What are we doing? We are marching slowly, and yet not even so slowly, into the depths of authoritarianism that we might not ever be able to get out of. And I am so disappointed in my libertarian friends who are more than excited to lick the boot of the Trump administration, because it turns out, actually, authoritarianism is pretty great when it's your guy. I am so disappointed to see how many Americans actually don't mind having a dictator in the White House as long as they think the dictator is going to be authoritarian in the direction that they want to go into. It is so heartbreaking. This country is falling apart. And when we have a leader in the White House who is talking about literally taking over cities and we're not doing anything about it, I'm not trying to be an alarmist here, but like, at what point do you start sinking into civil war? When the government starts marching troops into cities, they've already done that. And now, not only is he, threatening to take over cities or whatever, he is taking over the media. First of all, I don't even really want to dignify it, so I'm not going to talk about it to much extent at all, but he is starting up some kind of Trump streaming service. Throw that in with the cryptocurrency and the Trump phone and all that stupid BS he's using to launder money. It's such a load of crap. I have so little respect for you if you sign up for any of that stuff. It's disgusting. Whatever. But second of all, you guys need to know about this CBS lawsuit. And it's something I talked about very, very briefly before. I talked about when Bill Owens quit 60 Minutes because he said that they were basically taking away his independence. They were saying he wasn't allowed to run certain stories. He wasn't allowed to editorialize in certain ways. He just wasn't allowed to do his job anymore. So he quit. Trump sued CBS over an interview that they held with Kamala Harris during election season. And basically, what it all boiled down to is he claimed that they edited the interview in a way to make her look better. And so that was not fair. And so he wanted to sue them for $15 million. You can look at the unedited footage. They have released it all. Basically, what happened was, during an interview with Kamala Harris, they asked her some question about Israel. She had a very long, meandering response. During the preview for the interview, they aired the first half of her response. And during the actual interview itself, they aired the second half of her response. They cut it in half. Now, interviews are edited all the time for length, for whatever. They have to fit into a certain amount of time. Donald Trump has had interviews that I guarantee you have been edited. Legal scholars all across America understood that this was a frivolous lawsuit. This had absolutely no shot at going through. But CBS actually gave up. They went ahead and they held their hands up and said, you know what? You win. We're going to just pay you $15 million. CBS was renamed to Paramount Global. And Paramount Global was underwater. They were bleeding out money. They were not doing well whatsoever. So they got into talks with Skydance to get into a merger. And for a while, those talks were going nowhere. And then finally, they started to pick up again. And then this lawsuit got in the way. So there are two reasons that CBS came to an agreement with Trump. The first is Skydance did not want to do this merger while the lawsuit was ongoing for a variety of reasons, but basically just because it made it all complicated and messy. And second of all, the FCC has to approve these big media mergers. Trump runs the FCC. I mean, he has an appointee who actually runs it, but that appointee is, like almost every single one of Trump's appointees, a horrible sycophant. And so he's going to do whatever Trump wants. And if CBS was fighting against Trump and winning a lawsuit, there's every shot that Trump would say, don't allow this merger to go through. So for the low cost of $15 million, Paramount Global entered into an $8 billion merger with Skydance. It is so incredibly dangerous for the president of the United States to be in control of media like this. He already is in control of the military. He is in control of the Department of Justice, the FBI, the National Guard, immigration, and he is in control of it to an extent that no other president has been up until now. It is the unitary executive theory, the idea that the president is the supreme power and everybody answers directly to him, and their sole job is to do whatever the president wills them to do. And so now, not only has he done that, but he is now controlling media. And so CBS, aka Paramount Global, aka Paramount Global Skydance, now owe Trump. They owe him a favor. If he lets this merger go through, they owe him. Right now, Paramount Global is delaying running South Park because they are worried that South Park is going to make jokes that make fun of Trump, and that's going to make him mad and make him not want to approve the merger. You have to understand how dangerous that is. And okay, yes, it's just South Park. It's just some cartoon. But the fact that people are scared to post media because it might make the president angry is frightening. It is disturbing. And as you can see from the very first thing we talked about in this video, President Trump is not afraid to attack people for exercising their First Amendment right. I don't know how to make it any more clear that we are desperately falling into authoritarianism in a truly frightening and disturbing way. It is scary. And I'm sorry for always talking about scary news. I'm sorry for always talking about sad news. I'm sorry for always ringing the alarm bells, but guess what? That's just what's going on right now. If I could talk about a bunch of happy stuff, I would, but there's just not a lot out there. It's scary. It's sad. It's frightening. This country is turning into something I don't recognize anymore. And I guess on that happy note, I kind of want to just follow this up with what has now seemingly become a weekly rant against capitalism, because it's been heavy on my mind to explain lately how capitalism in and of itself is basically the Matrix. So I have a lot of more spiritual friends, spiritually minded. Some of you may be watching this now. And a lot of spiritual people talk about how we are in the Matrix. basically, that is just an easy metaphor for everything that we are experiencing right now. Capitalism is that matrix system. It is that system that sucks you in and brainwashes you. It surrounds you with a mythos of shiny objects to distract you from the real issues that are going on. And when I talk about the real issues that are going on, I mean things like your spiritual health, your relationship with God. And I also mean things like our political situation. In my very first episode, I sat up here and I said, politics is spiritual warfare. And I meant it. It is. And what capitalism, what this matrix is here to do is to distract you from all of it. I want to show you this clip real quick. It's of Bo Burnham. He's a musical comedian. But he brought this up. He was talking about some of the potential dangers of basically social media.
What is a phone? What the definition of a phone changes every single day. Like, when's the right age to get a phone? I don't know, because by the time your kid gets to that age, a phone is a completely different thing spiritually. Like I'm saying, these things are like interacting with our souls on a deep level, and that's the problem with the internet, and that's the challenge. Obviously, you guys have with young kids is that, but it's like, yeah, good luck, like having them like. When my kid's 9, he's not going to have an iPhone. Yeah, of course not, because it's going to be plugged into his head or whatever at that point, you know. No, but truly, so like that's the really hard thing is that, and even with formulating opinions or making art about the internet, by the time you take the time, this is the problem about the internet in general, by the time you take the time that is needed to think about something, to articulate it, it is obsolete. Kids are like walking through this like meta virtual reality world. It's not that they think the world in their phone is real. It's they think the world in the real world is virtual, and that this is actually just like a thing to be seen, and everything I'm doing is actually a performance that can be captured and looked back on at any moment. Yeah. And I'm not just living moments, I'm planning moments to look back on them. I mean, it's very, very strange and like heady. They're coming for every second of your life. That's what these companies are coming to. This company as well. And it's not because anyone is bad. It's not because anyone in this company has evil plans or is trying to do this. They're not even doing it consciously. It's because these companies like Twitter and YouTube and Instagram and everything, they went public and they went to shareholders. So they have to grow. Their entire models are based off of growth. They cannot stay stagnant. Twitter grossed $4-5 billion last year. It is in the red. It is unprofitable. It has to get more of you. That could be the ceiling for a place like this. YouTube, the ceiling could be 3 hours of engagement. No matter how nice it's trying to be, it is all that they're trying to get more engagement from you. We used to colonize land. That was the thing you could expand into, and that's where money was to be made. We colonized the entire earth. There was no other place for the businesses and capitalism to expand into, and then they realized human attention. That they are now trying to colonize every minute of your life. That is what these people are trying to do. Every single free moment you have is a moment you could be looking at your phone and they could be gathering information to target ads at you. That's what's happening. So like as much as we can, you know, as have really good conversations and try to humanize the conversations, the like mechanism of the business is rolling towards that just because of the market. So like it's coming. It's coming for every free second you have. These content creators are wrestling with these difficult questions of the sort of weird meta like hellscape that it is to be online. It's weird and it's complicated, and the kids know it and they sense it. That's why their memes are all ironic and detached and self-referential and 12 layers deep, because truth is completely dead to them and they know it. They look at the president, they look at the culture, they go, what the hell is this? They look at like Coca-Cola commercials that are winking at them and smiling, and they go like, forget it, you know? So like, ugh, I have no idea what's gonna happen.
So I think he brought up an important point there. And it goes for not just social media, but literally everything. They, and when I say they, I mean corporations as a whole, they are trying to capture every single moment of your day. You look around you, and what do you see? Brands, advertisements. You go for a drive, you see billboards. You watch a show, you see commercials. You browse the internet, you see ads. Every single moment of your day is geared towards trying to separate you from your money and time, because that is all you are to them. You are only the amount of money in your pocket that they can take from you. And if they can't take your money, they can take your time and sell that to somebody. If they can't make you spend money on them, they can make you browse and look around and then sell those clicks and views to another company who uses that to advertise to you. And half the time, these corporations are advertising fixes to problems that they cause. I was watching a show recently with my wife, and we were stunned at how many ads we were getting for things like Equifax, Credit Karma, these credit monitoring bureaus that put you into a bad position by nature. I talked about before kind of the scam that is the credit score system, this unique system in America that is built to keep you down. How you have to be in debt to grow your credit. How you have to not be young to have a good credit score. You have to juggle between credit cards and car payments and house payments and get into all sorts of different kind of debt for different amounts of years to be able to grow your credit score. And if you don't do that, you have a bad credit score and you can't do things like buy a house. And so Equifax, who causes these problems by ranking your credit score poorly, then advertises to you on how to get your credit score up. It's sort of like what I was talking about with Republicans, how they go and they cause problems in the government, and then they point at that and say, look, the government has a problem. That's a reason to tear it down. These credit score companies, they jab you in the credit, they get your credit score into a negative territory, and then they say, look, your credit's bad. You can just pay us money and we'll help you fix it. You look at these corporations that sell you food that's full of sugars and corn syrup and carbs, and then they turn around and they sell you diet foods, Slim Fast shakes, because they understand that if they can constantly just play both sides, they will always be making money on you. Always. And their entire goal is simply to always squeeze every single cent that they can out of you. And once you've opened your eyes to that, it is impossible to see it any other way. Once you understand that the only thing they want to do is separate you from your money, that's all you can see. Take a step outside, look around, you'll see 20 different name brands advertising to you constantly. It's rare that you can even buy a shirt that doesn't have some brand name on it. You look at billboards, you look at commercials, every single moment of the day, they are trying to get your money from you. Streaming services nowadays, not only do you have to pay for the streaming service, you have to watch ads or you have to pay them even more. America lives under a hyper-capitalistic society where every single moment of the day is focused on advertising to you. They bombard you with things to make you upset and make you unhappy and make you have mental health problems, and then they advertise medicine to you to fix your mental health problems. They sell you food that makes you fat, and then they advertise Ozempic to you. They want you to always be under their thumb. Always. And a society that's built on that is untenable. It is not going to last. It can't. We are going to collapse under the weight of the debt that our society is in. So I guess I just want you to open your eyes a little bit. Just be aware of what's going on. Take a look. If you are aware of the problem, that's half the battle. So I guess for my call to action this week, I want you to open your eyes, awaken to what's going on around you. How these corporations are not only always trying to advertise to you, to try and separate you from every cent that you have, but how they're trying to distract you, how they're trying to keep you from focusing on what's really going on, how they're trying to make it so that you are just barely content enough to not go marching in the streets about it. But you never have time to sit back and really think about what's happening. They have to walk this fine line between making sure that you are comfy enough that you are willing to enslave yourself until you are 70 years old, but not so comfy that you can ever actually examine how they are truly taking advantage of you. Open your eyes. Thank you so much for joining me this week. It was a pleasure as always. And remember, when you change your perspective, the reality changes. I'll see you soon.